Let's be real. December in HR is no joke. I'm exhausted. Anybody else? Yeah, it's for at least for me, it's open enrollment, it's performance review season, it's merit process season. It's just a crazy time with so many things. Plus, like some of the weeks are short, like between November and December, certainly. But then, like, you get toward the end of December and like you don't have that many days left. And it's like, how do you get all this stuff done? Juggling your team's needs with payroll hours, tracking timesheets while wrapping up the year and preparing for next year. It's just a lot, all with a tech stack that's held together with spreadsheets and a ton of hope. Well, depending, right? But this is where ultimately Intuit QuickBooks Payroll comes in. You might think that QuickBooks is just for accounting, but let me tell you, it's so much more than that. QuickBooks Payroll is your business management control center that connects payroll, time tracking, HR, and finance in one powerful platform. It breaks down silos, reduces errors, and improves collaboration, all without adding complexity or forcing you to switch systems. Thank you, QuickBooks Payroll, for saving us. QuickBooks Payroll gives you clarity, control, and confidence to do your job smarter and faster so you can spend less time chasing down data and more time supporting your team. I personally love that QuickBooks Payroll integrates with everything. Integration, AI, and automation handle all of the heavy lifting, giving you nearly 4 hours back a week. And frankly, if you think about that, imagine what you could do with 4 more hours every week. Just think about it. Let your mind go to that magical place. So, if you're ready to stop surviving and start thriving in the new year, make the switch to QuickBooks Payroll now. Learn more by going to quickbooks.com/payroll. That's quickbooks.com/payroll. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Traci Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. I made a joke right before we started recording, so that's why I'm smiling so big. But also, I'm really excited that we have Dr. Greg Giuliano on the podcast. Did I pronounce your name correctly, Greg? Dr. Greg?
You did.
All right.
You get a gold star.
Thank you. But the listeners are probably so tired of hearing me say, I'm really excited about my guest. But the thing is, we went through this process. When I bring a guest on, it's not just bringing you on cold. We've vet the topics. We talk through, what could be interesting for the listeners. So I am truly excited about every topic that we talk about on this podcast, but especially this one, because it's all about leadership and change and all of the good stuff, but from a very specific point of view. So let me introduce you to Dr. Greg Giuliano. As I've already teased, he is an advisor and executive coach to senior leaders and teams all over the world. He is the founder of GA Ultra Leadership, designing leadership and team development strategies that drive organizational transformation. His mission is to help leaders and teams grow their capacity to enable positive disruption for markets, organizations, teams, and individuals. Greg is the author of 3 #1 Amazon bestsellers, Coaching for a Change, The Next Normal, and Ultra Leadership, as well as The Hero's Journey. You can find Greg on LinkedIn. We'll link everything in the show notes, as well as where you can find his books. And you can also find him on the Ultra Leadership YouTube channel and at ultraleadership.com. So Greg, thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited to dive into, especially your most recent book, Coaching for a Change. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us all how this interest and how this passion started for you?
Absolutely. And thank you very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to I'm as excited about the conversation as you are.
Nice.
I'm one of those lucky people who finally found my way to doing what I love. In kindergarten, we're taught to work and play well with others. And I have to, full disclosure, my citizenship grade when I was in, kindergarten, first and second grade wasn't too great. I wasn't great at working and playing well with others, much to my parents' chagrin. But that's kind of actually become my life's work. I started out in education, and then I went into private. I did my doctorate in psychology. It was in private practice for a while, and then found out about a new field of executive coaching, and then through that found out about leadership development. and made the jump full, into that world full time. And I did that. And you and I were talking the other day because I appreciate the starting point much more. It made me feel better. The starting point for therapy is something is wrong, broken, and can you fix it? Can you fix my spouse? Can you fix my kid? Can you fix this relationship? Right. So it's all about fixing.
Mm.
And with coaching, it's not about fixing. You're doing great. You just want to do better. And so I love the starting point, and I love that work. And so that's been my journey. It's been a privilege for almost 30 years now. I'm kind of a Sherpa and go along with people and teams as they're on a journey to better themselves.
I love that. And I think what's really cool is that you have this background that it enables you really to actually think about how people think and know how people think or why they might think that way, and that you're not taking a almost like a segregated approach to people's minds and mindsets. For example, it's easy for us to say, oh, this leader, they totally suck and they're mean and they're angry all the time and they're confrontational and they fight with everyone. But for someone with your background, you're probably thinking, well, what was their upbringing like? These are their coping skills with certain things. Why are they confrontational? Like all of these things that I obviously am not qualified to go into, but it does for me help me to realize that you are looking at leadership with an extra layer, because everyone reacts to their environments not just because of how they experience their careers or if they're happy in their jobs or not. It's so much more than that. We know that there is literally no possibility of separating who we are from the way that we are at work. So I think that's really interesting that you have that background.
Yeah, I mean, and I bring a bunch of it, not explicitly, because coaching and therapy aren't the same thing.
Right.
But I learned a lot of lessons as a therapist that I bring. One of the things that I bring into my work, and I remind folks, and you mentioned that sometimes there might be a leader who's a bully or just not optimal. And there's a model from the late 60s transactional psychoanalysis called the drama triangle, where and we tell stories to make meaning of our lives, and stories have characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so a story like you were just sharing, we tell these stories at work all the time. That leader's a jerk. That team is hard to work with. That process is, terrible. And it's really all, so we're telling a story, and that person or that team or that process becomes the villain in our story. Mm-hmm. And we grab somebody in the hallway, or we text somebody after the meeting, and we complain to them. We vent to them. That leader is a jerk. That team is, God, I hate dealing with the finance team. They're just, all right, that HR process. I just, oh God, it's ruining my life. And that person we're asking them to play the hero for us and make us feel better and agree with us. And when we do that, the only character left by default is the victim. And we make ourselves the victims in our own stories. And what I've found is that even the people that we label the biggest villain in the company, they're telling themselves a victim story. They act that way because they feel victimized. And so what I try to tell people is, we can't lead if we're in one of those corners. Mm. So how do we get ourselves out of that corner? And by the way, you are not a victim. So yeah, that just happened. Let's vent for a couple of minutes. Let's get it all out. It's like, okay, it's all out now. Okay, so you are not a victim. What's in your control? And what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, even the biggest villain in your company, they're not really a villain. They're just a person who's very, very different than you are. Period. So what do you want to do about that?
Right. Well, this is something that people probably logically understand. Oh, everyone's a human. Everyone, people have good intentions 99.9% of the time. And yet that never registers in the moment. And something that I actually recently have imparted on in my own practice as an individual in a high pressured job with, multiple stress points, is that I'm allowed to complain or vent about something for a certain period of time. It's a
Yeah.
short period of time. Otherwise, my husband would probably be my ex-husband because he wouldn't be able to stand it. Just kidding. But it's like, I give myself, okay, if it's at 4 o'clock that I start venting, then by 6 p.m. I've got to be done. And when I think about that, what it's allowed me to do is remember that, like, most of the time the things that are bothering us are really not that big of a deal. And especially when we're not like saving lives, maybe some people are, but we're not saving lives and we're not like saving the world, and we're probably just like processing our own or executing on our own jobs. And while important, it's not necessarily something that is earth shattering, which, again, for some people, maybe it is. But nevertheless, I say that because I, I'll share candidly, I used to really dwell on like and I'm a very positive person, by the way, but I used to dwell on things that made me feel like I was out of, not in control of like my own role or my own future at a company, or if someone, didn't agree with me or they gave me feedback that was like not even harsh but like mean, because everyone kind of can encounter that at some point. But I used to dwell on those things that then ultimately led to, yes, to your point, this victim mentality. And then further, you kind of ostracize yourself from the organization, and you resent the people around you, you resent the company, and you end up either leaving or you figure out how to overcome that. And so when I think about what you've shared, as far as, people are just, everyone is flawed at some level, and we're talking about people who are just people at the end of the day. That's something that over time I, as an individual, have learned, even though I know this, like logically, we all know this. But I'm curious if you have ideas for how someone can, instead of learning the hard way, can actually like impart on themselves strategies to just take a step back, maybe do something like what I do, where it's they give themselves a time limit for their complaining, and then effectively enable themselves to just move on and reset their mindset.
Yeah, I mean, your strategy is a good one, right? It's creating space between the stimulus, right? What triggered you,
Mm.
and your response, right? So when we have a knee jerk, if it's immediate, it's probably just emotional reactivity, right? They triggered a negative emotion in us, and that emotion is driving my decision making of what am I going to do next. And what you're doing is a great strategy. Is it's as simple as counting to five, and breathing
Totally.
before I think about, okay, now what am I going to do? And so just creating that kind of space to allow you to regulate your response to that emotion that is welling up in you because somebody's behavior, crossed a boundary with you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it's counter to how you would show up. And so you got to give yourself permission to allow it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I got triggered. I'm upset because of what you said or what you did. And so now I want to bring myself back to center and calm myself down, and then think about, okay, not a victim. I have agency. What do I want to do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's the boundary that, is do I need to do something, or do I need to just let it go by like a cloud in the sky? Right. Because maybe it did it. Maybe they're not even aware that what they said or did, caused that reaction in me. They might not even know
Mm-hmm.
that they've done that. And the danger is if we don't do what you're doing, is have that strategy of calming myself and thinking before I say something or do something. The danger is I'm gonna engage in a behavior that someone else is gonna go home and tell their story, and I'm the villain in their story
Right. Right.
because I behaved badly because I was triggered by something. So we end up in this dynamic of villain victim, all the time. If I don't like the finance team, I'm going to be hard to work with the finance team. And they're going to tell a story about, Greg, who, God, that guy, Greg, he's just really hard to work with. He doesn't understand how we work. So we end up being somebody else's villain. So what you're doing is a beautiful strategy of, okay, yeah, I know that happened, right? I used to say to my coach, I'd vent and he'd say, oh, okay, yeah, well, that just happened. What
Yeah.
do you want to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can go kill him, but you'll probably get arrested or get fired, right? So you can do anything you want. You're a grown up. You can do anything you want. But what consequence are you willing to accept? What's the outcome you're looking for? And it just reminds me, okay, yeah, I have agency here. What do I want to do?
Mm.
Sometimes it's something, sometimes it's nothing. Just let it go.
Totally. Letting it go is actually a very powerful thing. You think like in the moment when you're in that like emotional state, you're like, there's no way I'm letting this go. I'll
Yeah.
never let this go. They sent me an email with a K and a period after it. It's like
What?
it's like, how can they do that? They're so rude. It's like things that are otherwise like so totally insane that it really don't when you actually walk away from it, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I totally let it go. This is like, I suppose, similar to the sage advice that many people give, which is never send an email when you're angry
Right.
and or never reply to an email that makes you angry and walk away for 24 hours. It's not that big of a deal. I have made the mistake of not listening to myself on those things. And it doesn't matter how much of a professional you are. When you're angry, your words can be cutting, and they don't necessarily communicate what you're looking to communicate. And frankly, when you respond to things, when you are in that heightened state of emotion, you're angry, whatever it is, you actually, I don't know if you're like me, you probably didn't even fully read the thing. And then you're not even answering the question that's being asked. This is like my own truth serum, this episode here. But the
Yeah.
thing is, like, we've all done it and we'll all do it at some point. And no matter how much we've learned, we'll probably make a mistake maybe once or twice. You can slip up a little bit. But one of the things that I really like that you said is you use the term agency. And when I think about this, you know, decision to step away or decision to give yourself time and space, as we've talked about, you are taking back the feeling of control that you ultimately feel you're relinquishing. Because to me, when you talk about the victim villain kind of dichotomy, there's a piece of the villainizing that we do with these stories where we probably feel a lack of control, or we feel like we are out of control, that we don't have the ability to make our own decisions or have our own agency over things, when in reality, walking away, figuring out what exactly it is that you need in that moment is probably the best way to articulate the control for yourself that you still have. And the agency is really probably the perfect term. And one of the things that you and I had spoken about the other day was how leaders in recent months, years, have potentially like reverted back. Not all leaders, but some leaders have potentially reverted back to this high control, like super hands on, potentially even micromanaging type of strategy when it comes to their leadership. We see this, for example, in companies saying you have to come back to the office full time when people have been working remotely for the last 5 years, or things like, oh, you can't take, you can't take PTO for that particular day because we need you in the office, even though it's like, what's the big deal with one day? Like, we see small things like that that actually have big impacts on people. So I'm curious what your thoughts on the leadership element to that. What your thoughts are there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been on a tremendous journey to as the metaphor of the organization as a machine has died off, and it can't go away fast enough, in my view. To the organization is a bunch of people, with shared objectives. Here's what we're trying to achieve in this organization. And so if the organization is a machine, my job as a manager is to make sure that my parts of the machine are as efficient and effective as possible. If
Mhm.
I see my team as a group of people, a group of humans who are working together to achieve something, then my role is very different as a leader. And so we're seeing as we think more about the customer and the brand experience we're trying to create, what's the employee experience that we can create that creates that positive customer experience that results in an awesome brand experience in the marketplace. So if we reframe it like that, then the old school organization is machine, command and control, traditional hierarchy, that that's giving way, and it's been happening. And what I'm concerned about in the last 6 months is, as people and organizations and markets are, there's a lot more uncertainty and volatility in the system, that there's a reversion to, okay, we need to command this organization and we need to control it.
Mm,
And I don't want to see that. I think it's a bad idea, because our workforce today, especially on the other side of the pandemic, you're right. People are used to, we had to give up command and control because we sent everybody home.
right.
And so we've started thinking about outcomes and productivity more than time, time and you're in your cubicle. And I want to see us stay in that, even if we, working, or if we move back to hybrid, that some organizations are, can you be available, to the team and to our internal partners? So what does it look like when you bring people back? But I hope we don't go back to it. And I think if we try to, it's dangerous, and not dangerous, but it's just the wrong move,
Yeah.
because the workforce today, especially younger folks, they've got a taste of feeling empowered and a sense of autonomy, and a sense of trust that you're gonna contribute, and you're going to follow through, and you're going to be productive, and you're going to be a strong part of the team and do your work. I don't need to watch you all the time. And so I want to see leaders accelerate that shift from old school managing and really micromanaging to coaching and empowering people to see what we're trying to achieve together as a team, and say, this is my part, I got this, and if I need something, if I need coaching from you, I will ask you. And that leaders are okay with that they see that that's their role, to serve the team and be a coach to these talented people that you've brought in and have asked to work together.
Yeah, it's really a fair point. When I think about what you've shared too, with regard to command and control versus people feeling empowered, it does feel antithetical when there's someone exerting this command and control philosophy or belief system in terms of their leadership style, then inevitably there's really no chance for someone to feel empowered, autonomous, or,
Oh,
self-motivated, right? Because it's like, well, this person's just going to tell me what to do and what they need from me, and so I don't have to think. And
it's the
yeah,
opposite. It's
yeah,
disengaging, it's disempowering, and people end up doing as just enough to not get dinged, right?
right, right. Oh, that sounds like a miserable way to guide a team. I mean, I couldn't imagine having especially if we think about this top down, if this is something that a CEO is doing or a board of directors is doing, and then CFO, and then directors and managers, you just have a team of people who aren't innovating because they're not thinking for themselves.
Right.
They're not contributing because they don't care, because who wants to care in an environment like that? And then you have leaders who, depending on how high that type of philosophy goes in the ranks, who are probably being rewarded that for that type of behavior. And then it creates kind of this cycle of employees kind of at the quote unquote bottom of the chain, who see what it takes to be successful at an organization, in that type of organization, let's say, where there is this command and control philosophy taking over. And then you have a group of people who then model that and embody it. And then you have future
Yeah.
organizations that don't transform what it means to be, an organization that empowers people. There's just no way.
Yeah.
It happens. Companies fall victim to that type of mentality very often.
Yeah. Well, so in that kind of a traditional command and control organization, Everybody is working to make sure that the CEO and the leadership team are as anxiety free as possible. Everything is about
Yeah.
making them feel better. They don't have to worry about anything. I think we need to flip that. I think that that leadership is there to serve the people who are doing the work. And so
Hmm.
creating the conditions that make it easy for people to engage. And people don't engage the organization. When we survey, we do employee engagement surveys, people don't engage the organization. They engage their work and they engage the people that they work with. And so, are we creating the conditions that make it easy for them to engage their work and easy for them to engage one another? And when
Hmm.
we do that, okay, then that's empowering. Okay, we create the conditions that people feel empowered, that they have not just responsibility. They're not just hands on an assembly line, but you want their brains and you want their hearts. So they're empowered to shape their work and make decisions. And they have not just responsibility, but authority for their contribution and how they go about doing that. And that's how you unlock people and activate them.
Totally. Totally. I'm curious, have you ever encountered a leader who is kind of leading with this command and control mindset or methodology, thinking that they don't? Like where they think that they're empowering and engaging people, but actually they're just
Yeah.
commanding and controlling?
Yeah, because they're really nice, right? They're really, they're nice to people, and so they're not like barking at people. But I'm really nice to my people. I know when their birthdays are, and and that kind of stuff. But they're still just telling people what to do all the time. And so yeah, I had a person who I was coaching who he's every year and throughout the year he just told people what to do. It's like, here are your goals for the year and here's what I want you working on and here's how I want you to do it. And it's just, and we talked about it and I said, so do you like being told what to do? He goes, no, I hate being told what to do. I said, yeah, everybody does. Nobody likes being told what to do. And all you do is you have very talented people. And do you trust that they know what to do? He says, well, yeah, of course I trust them. Well, then stop laying it out for them. Oh, okay. Yeah. So what should we do? And so we
Hmm.
flipped it. It's like, what's the North Star? And invite them to tell you, here are my goals for the year. Let them do the first draft, right? Stop doing the first draft. A lot of leaders that I coach, that's one of the first things I tell them is that you are doing the first draft of everything. You are not an individual contributor. Stop doing the first draft. Let your people take the lead, and then you can coach them to fine tune and make sure that they're focused on the right work and that they're partnering with the right people, right? So you become a mentor and a coach and a guide versus the guy or the woman who's just saying, this is it, do this and do it this way. You got a bunch of mini me's and it's a bunch of baby birds, right? You end up with a team of
Totally.
baby birds. They're just waiting for you to feed them all the time.
Oh my God. How laborious that would be to be the mama bird in that circumstance.
It's
That's a lot of
exhausting.
baby birds.
Yeah, well, he's complaining, Greg, I don't have any time to think about things. It's like, no, because you're doing the work of your team.
Hmm.
So really that we don't really, you know, you're overpaid for what you're doing because you're doing the work of people one or two levels below you all the time.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. So interesting. It makes me think about leaders that I have had who I've had who are either on the command and control side or the really like lead by example servant leadership style, which obviously is the better style if you ask me, of course, as we're talking about here. Um, and it's interesting because most of the command and control leaders that I've encountered, whether they've been my own or I've had to kind of upskill them to move away from that type of leadership style, they generally are very nice. You're right. It's
Yeah.
interesting because it's not like everyone is truly a villain and they just want to tell everyone what to do. There's this almost misguided effort that they want people to do a great job. Maybe they think at some level that they are servant leaders because they're doing so much for their team.
Right.
But their teams are like, my leader does not trust me. My leader doesn't even let me do, something that I'm highly qualified to be able to do. And then at that point, they're probably more so disengaged than anything because most people want to prove their worth and they want to be able to take away from their experiences new learnings, new opportunities, new initiatives, and then ultimately add it to their resume for a future role. And when you're
Yeah.
not actively doing or thinking on your own, you're not really learning
Yeah.
at all.
I talk about this in the new book that micromanagement, in my view, is really just my anxiety is driving my decision making.
Mm,
I micromanage. If I'm micromanaging my team, it's not because I don't trust them. It's because my anxiety won't let me not micromanage them. I need to know all that stuff. I need to, right. So I'm always in their stuff. And so so we try to, how do we break that habit and start, and that's the title of the new book is Coaching for a Change, and the A's in parentheses because it has a double meaning. Coaching for change, we're trying to help somebody want to change, or trying to help a team change or an organization change, and we're trying to coach them to change something. And it's also, I want leaders to stop telling people what to do and try coaching for a change.
hmm
If you really
Literally,
want to
yeah.
engage people, I love being coached. I don't like being told what to do. And
Yeah.
I think that everybody's, I think almost everybody is like that. And so how do we help managers make that shift from managing and, God forbid, micromanaging to coaching people and trusting them to, help them engage their work and their peers and feel empowered to shape their work and then activated to go out and get it done.
Yeah. This point that you've made, which really calls on the title of your book, Coaching for a Change, why don't leaders try coaching for a change, is what you said. It brings me back to I was very fortunate that I worked for Target in my very first experience out of college because they have a really wonderful culture of teaching coaching for leaders. And they spend a lot of time helping to really onboard and upskill leaders, whether new or tenured, um, to be able to effectively coach. And everything at Target was like have a coaching conversation. And the idea was that you would go into that conversation just asking questions. Well, what led you to this decision? Why did you decide to do this? Instead, whether someone stole from the store or whether you were, interviewing them, preparing them for their next opportunity, and you were doing like a mock interview, like from a bad situation to a great situation, coaching was really at the forefront of the leadership experience. And so I learned very early on that coaching and having coaching style conversations where you're really leading with this question based approach, first of all, you get so much more information. People open up, they feel more safe, and you effectively get that person to their answer without having to tell them. So now
Yeah.
they're bought into you as a leader because they're like, oh, my manager actually cares about me. He or she asked me all these questions and they really took time to get to understand my decision. And now I know I could do this differently next time. It's so low effort for the leader.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
impactful.
And when we do our Be a Great Coach program with leaders, we try to dispel the myths that they have about coaching, that it takes too long or it's too touchy
Yeah.
feely or, we need to get stuff done. And none of that stuff is true. We get people within the first 30 minutes at the workshop. We pair them up and we give them our cheat sheet, our great coaching framework. And we say, you've got 10 minutes to coach this person. And all you have to do is ask the questions on the card. And in 10 minutes, somebody has moved from an idea, what were they stuck on? They've thought through options and they've come up with the best next step. And so it shifts things for them, that it opens them up to, so it doesn't have to take a long time. Oh, it really can help me get stuff done. I want it to be like you say, the default setting. And that as a leader, my default is I just want to coach you. And there are times in an organization where you can't coach, right? There's some
Totally.
circumstances, well, shoot, this is not a coaching thing. This is now, right? And it might be that you've decided that the person doesn't have the will or the skill to make the pivots that you're looking for, and or they've done something egregious in terms of company policy or whatever. And that's not a coaching moment. Then it's like, okay, well, now it's, I've got to, I've
Be
got
more
to be a
firm.
manager
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I want the default. I want to see first, is this a coachable moment? I might find out that it's not, because the person isn't coachable or the situation doesn't warrant it. It warrants something more serious. But I want our default to be, my job is to empower these people. And the best way to empower people is to coach them.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, it's funny. I can't exactly remember who I was speaking with, um, but these things are so second nature for most of us. Like meaning it's logical to say, oh yeah, people would respond better to coaching versus telling because I don't want to be told what to do. And yet we still see there are so many leaders who really benefit from coaching themselves because they themselves are not coaches. Um, and so I'm curious if you were to give advice to any listener today, whether it's for someone who's working or coaching a leader to be a stronger leader and to kind of try, maybe remove themselves from some of these behaviors that are less effective to something more effective, what would you advise them in terms of moving the needle in a way that's more impactful with a leader that potentially is not, leading with this coaching mindset? And or what would you say to someone who is a leader who is not using this type of mindset? How do they start?
Yeah, I mean, it's just making the decision and finding a way to build it into, so we think about something, we talk about it with somebody, and we practice the new way, right? So if we get into that habit of that three-step process over and over again, we're going to learn the new way. We're going to put a new habit in place. So if it's something that you think you've been coaching but you want to get better at coaching, just what can you do today, and tomorrow and the next day, to be intentional? How do you make yourself more aware that you want to try something different? And how do you be transparent about it? You can tell your team, I think I've been telling you guys what to do a lot, and maybe it's probably disempowering, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to practice being a coach more, and you can help me. So what do you want to? You can come to me when we have our one-on-ones and say, here's what's going on with me. Here's what I would like some coaching on today. And we can turn our one-on-ones from just a status update to a coaching session. And I want to make that commitment. If they're brand new, I would, find some place to learn about coaching. You could read my new book. It's a cookbook,
Yeah.
right? It's a recipe book. You get a coach. Ask your organization if they have, if you can have some dollars to, do some training on it. So it comes down to being intentional. And for me, when I'm coaching leaders, I ask them to think about, what's the impact that you want to have. And this is evergreen. This isn't role specific. It's, what do you want people saying about you when you're not around, right? Traci is a blank leader who helps others blank. How would you fill in those blanks? And that's evergreen. Okay, so that means probably, what are the behaviors? What are the behaviors and practices that are consistent with that impact statement that you've articulated? Is it telling people what to do? Is it empowering them and coaching them? Okay, so now we have that evergreen aspiration. So what's the development that you want to engage in that would help you make that impact statement true versus aspirational? And
Mm,
you start that journey.
that's great advice. And I love that question. How do you want people talking about you when you're not in the room?
Because
Because
they are.
they definitely
They are,
they're
right? There's
talking
some
about
people are talking about you right now,
they are.
and
My ears are ringing.
it's yeah, and it's based on probably it's based on the last interaction they had with you.
Yeah, it's true.
How
And
were you in
I
that last interaction? Yeah.
right. And I love that you shared this idea and this strategy that you can just be transparent, that you could say, hey, you know what? I've been leading in this type of way and I want to try something new. And that
Yeah.
also encourages the team, who might be leaders themselves, leaders in their own right always, but
Right.
people leaders and managers as well, to be open. That's a huge part of like personal growth, I think, is just being open to sharing your vulnerabilities or the things that you want to do differently.
Right. And one of the things that I find when we're engaging leaders to teach them about coaching is they'll say, "Well, Greg, that's not my organization. My organization isn't like that. My organization is still pretty command and control, old school, and that's not our culture." And I say, "You know what? Maybe it's not. And you're not the CEO. I don't expect you to be able to change the whole culture, but you're a culture of one. So how do you want to show up? And you can create a culture on your team of here's how we're going to show up for one another and for the people that we engage with inside the organization. And then they're going to have an experience. They're going to tell a story about you and your team when they go to other parts of the organization. And eventually you're going to find people with their nose against the glass looking at your team, and they're going to want, they're going to try to poach the people on your team because you're going to build a strong team, and they're going to love working with your team because of the way that your team is just so collaborative and so empowering of one another and really positive and easy to work with. So yeah, you can't change the whole organization, but you can create this culture in your team.
Absolutely. I was just looking up the quote. I think it's from Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world, right?
Yeah.
It's like we many of us have probably heard this, but like what does it actually mean? You've kind of just explained what that means. You might work in a company that doesn't necessarily value that type of leadership today, but it's true that once there is a team or a department that's operating a little differently, all of a sudden that spreads, word spreads, and people are potentially not even become envious and want to be on that team, but they also maybe are inspired and want to emulate what's working. So I think that's really cool, and I've really appreciated all of the insights that you've shared on this episode. And as expected, it was a great conversation. So
Great.
we've done it. We've done it. A plus. You've done it. And I'm really grateful that you joined the podcast and talked through your book, and also just this whole concept of how we can change how we lead, and it can start with us just as much as it can start at the top. And by the way, for all the listeners, like I said at the top of the podcast, all of the links will be in the show notes. But I just have to make mention, and Greg, I've said this to you already, the book cover is so gorgeous. You're just going to see the book and you're going to buy it. That's just the way that it goes. That's the way it goes. It's a beautiful cover. And it really is one of the books that is like, you just want to pick it up, because even if it's, it could be maybe classified as self-help or leadership or whatever, but it's deeper than that just from the image alone. So, and obviously we've talked quite a bit about it. So it's something that everyone should certainly navigate to and learn from. So Greg, thank you so much. I'll give you a moment here to share where else everyone can find you. And of course, everything will be linked, as I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned it. I'm on LinkedIn. We our YouTube channel where we drop a video a week, on all topics leadership, and you can find us at ultraleadership.com. And yeah, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I could do this all day.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, this is so really, I just really appreciate it. I appreciate the work that you're doing, because there are a lot of folks who, find themselves, promoted into a leadership position in their organization, and they're left to their own devices. And so a podcast like yours is a fantastic resource for, early career folks who want to who want to get on the leadership track, people who have just started in it, or, old guys like me who just need a refresher from time to time. So your work is really important,
I
and
appreciate that.
it's a privilege for me to get to talk with you.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And the honor is all mine. But I have learned to take a compliment, so I take it humbly and I appreciate it. Hopefully, all the listeners gain as much from our conversation as I think I have, and hopefully, you have as well. So, for everyone listening, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, and make sure you connect with Dr. Greg Giuliano because you won't regret it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.